Yay, hey everybody, and welcome to my channel, Emma Desi. It's so lovely to have you here. Before we go ahead, you know the drill. If you like what you hear, be sure to hit subscribe and the little notification bell so you know when I next have a lovely interview or video coming out. But today I am talking to the lovely Sarah Elisabeth Sawyer. She is an author and writing instructor who takes authors struggling to master the tools and knowledge of their author journey and help them become confident in their writing books. She has been featured on Joanna Penn's The Creative Pen podcast, Mark Dawson's self-publishing show, Jane Friedman's blog, writersdigest.com, and more. As a tribal member of the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, her signature course, Fiction Writing, American Indians, is equipping authors to write authentic stories that honor Native American history and culture. Her Fictation, Dictation 2.0 digital course takes authors through the exact process of mastering dictation to write fiction. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, how writers can use dictation to make their writing easier on the body, but also that little bit faster as well. But first, let me say welcome, Sarah. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Emma. I appreciate you having me on. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, me too. I'm very keen to learn a little bit. We know each other kind of already a little bit, but I'm keen to learn even more. But I was just reading there your fabulous accolades of places where you've been, the Creative Pen, Mark Dawson, Jane Friedman. I feel honored that you've said yes to me.
Oh, you just got back from Greece. I feel honored to be sharing this time with you, Emma. No, I appreciate that. And I have a little tiny update to my bio as well. I have a article on writersdigest.com. So very excited for that. And I'll also be featured as their indie spotlight author in the September, October magazine edition. So
That's
really
great.
just a great year.
Yeah, great year. Yeah, you have been busy this year. But let's kind of dig into a little sort of how it all began for you, and do kind of let me know a little bit more about your own road to writing, because I know you are a prolific writer. You've written a lot, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I wrote my first story when I was 5. And before I could, really even write full sentences, it wasn't anything elaborate, but my mom had given me a stack of sticky notes, and I literally just wrote one little halting sentence on each one, about 5 of them. But I had a story about kindness that I wanted to share, and I was extremely shy, and even then knew, oh, I wouldn't be able to ever tell this story. And the only way I could get it out was by writing it. And so I did that. My brother, who was 7 at the time, illustrated it. So that was my first book, and my mama saved it. So really grateful for that. And continue to write throughout my young years and my teenage years. But whenever I was 23 years old, I just really felt like God put writing back into my life and said, this is your calling and this is what you're to do with your life. And I was like, okay, let's go. And it's been a fantastic ride for right at 15 years now.
Wow. And you've written 19 books, I think you said.
Mhm. I've written more than that. We don't publish everything that we write, especially the early ones, but I've published 19 books. 18 of those are historical fiction, and one is a historical, I like to call it a narrative biography about a World War I Native American hero. So those are my 19 books that I have out right now.
Wow. And so that's a lot then. So that's kind of averaging out more than one a year. So that's quite a pace to keep up. How do you find that?
And actually, there's some years that I don't publish anything. I think there's been a few years that I've gone like 2 years. I know whenever I was working on my novel, Anumpa Warrior, Choctaw Code Talkers of World War I, I went for about 2 years without publishing anything because the research was so intense on that. What's really helped me the last few years is 9 of those books are novellas. And I'm really loving the novella format versus novels because novels are just so time and energy consuming. So I'm
Mhm.
really enjoying that. It's a historical Western series, and that's enabled me to write and publish at more of a pace that I wanted to go at. And I've published up to 5 books in a year. So I'm a very inconsistent ebb and flow kind of writer, go a few years without publishing anything and then publish a bunch. And so
Mhm.
that's just kind of been my process over the years.
It's one of the kind of nice things about being an indie. You have that freedom and that flexibility to fit it
Mhm.
in, depending on what else is going on in life. And we were chatting before, you publish wide as an independent author, but one of the things I did want to ask you about is that you also sell direct to your readers, not
Mhm.
using a third party. Can you talk to me a little bit about why you decided to do that and what the process has been like in setting that up and delivering the books to people?
Mhm. I was talking to an author friend I guess it's been about 2 years ago, and she was just moving into direct sales. And I was like, okay, let's do it. What did you do? And Joanna Penn had been talking about it for quite a
Mhm.
while. So I had been collecting, some research on it. And then Joanna has a fantastic article on her site about how to use it with BookFunnel and PayHip. So that's the process I went through, and I just went through it step by step per her article. She does have a note at the beginning of her article, and I knew this beforehand too, is that she has switched to Shopify. And I think that's a great option as well. I haven't dug into it as much. One of the things I was trying to set up is I wanted to put it on the artist page that I was building for my mother, choctawspirit.com. And I was like, well, if I can just put my books on there and sell them direct and direct people there, and it's more integrated with what I was doing as far as e-commerce with her. So I incorporated with that. I'm not sure if you can do that with Shopify. And now that I'm on Thrivecart with my fictioncourses.com, I'm considering maybe switching over to that. But Joanna Penn, like I said, has a great resource for authors that are just getting into direct marketing and you want to use PayHip, which handles the processing and sends everyone an email, or sends your your readers an email. And then BookFunnel, which if authors aren't familiar with that, great platform. Highly recommend that. If you're an indie author, or even if you're not, they do really well with just distributing books. That's their primary thing. So if you have a free book that you're wanting to give away, say to as a gift for people who sign up for your newsletter, BookFunnel is a great service for delivering your ebooks that way. So PayHip and BookFunnel together make it possible to do direct sales without a huge headache. There is some technical aspects involved, but a lot of authors, you don't have to be a big name author to do this. You can direct sell on your site.
Yeah, yeah, and it is becoming increasingly popular. I think a lot of people are kind of doing it in kind of reaction to the big houses that are, or the big distributors that are dominating. And for
Yes.
our listeners, if you've not come across Joanna Penn at the Creative Pen, particularly for indie authors, but more generally for all writers, she's a
Mhm.
fantastic resource and often has really good articles and about the practical how to do things. And
Mhm.
she's certainly who I went to and binged everything that she put out in the early days. So I'm a big fan. I
Yes.
owe a lot to her.
Mhm.
Um,
Same.
yeah, and you and I think, are both quite interested in AI, and she's someone who has been influential to me in that as well. Yeah, so I've been
Mhm.
following her stuff on that. So interesting. I haven't
Same.
dared
Very, yeah,
myself.
very early years listening to Joanna Penn whenever I was on the podcast with her. I was like, I feel like I know you. I know you probably hear that all the time, but
Yeah.
I do feel like I know you
Yes. Yeah, it must, it's like a full
personally.
circle moment. Yeah. Wow, lovely.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing a little bit about that. That's interesting to
Mhm.
kind of know, and I'm going to go and check out Joanna's article. So we've talked about how many books you've got. We've talked about your various distribution methods, but let's talk about how you put those books together. And now it's
Oh,
you use dictation for that. So I was curious about I've used dictation in the past. I'm a pantser, so
mhm.
I would just go blah 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 and speak into it.
Love
But
it.
for you, what I think you're more experienced at dictating than I am. What have you found to work? Do you plan your story so you know what you're going to be talking about, or
Mhm.
do you just fly by the seat of your pants?
Right. I used to be a pantster, 100%. I would try to outline because I'm like, oh, it's such a big mess from doing the pantster thing. And so I was like, I need to outline. And then I would outline and then I wouldn't stick to my outline because I got to follow the characters and I've got to get to know them. And I'm like halfway through before I even know what this story's about. And so I was like, oh, I just can't outline. And then I would write, I just kind of went every other one, right? I would just go, outline, not outline, outline, not outline. And finally, I came to the conclusion of I need to do outlining. Yes, things are going to change. Yes, there's still lots of room for discovery and following the characters. So it's like, I really need to outline. So I do a simple 3-act structure outline and don't do anything, too elaborate, but it does help me stay on timeline, especially since I write historical fiction. So there's a lot of elements, that's just a whole other, you know, portion that I have to consider whenever I'm writing. With dictation, I find it so helpful to have an outline. I think as a pantster, you can still absolutely use dictation. And if pantster is the way you want to stick with, you certainly can. I do recommend give outlining a try. I think it will be beneficial for authors. Again, not to mess with anyone's creative process, but I think there are a lot of benefits to that, especially when it comes to dictation. So I do know what each of my scenes are going to be. Sometimes I'll throw in an extra scene or I'll eliminate one from my outline, but in general, I have a good idea of where I'm going. I may not even know exactly what the ending is or what that climax is going to look like. So there's still the element of discovery. And with dictation, it is just so much less effort physically and
Mhm.
even mentally. There's still that emotional and mental aspect that we're always going to have as authors because we are creating, and that's a good thing. But with dictation, I don't want to say it makes it effortless, but it's certainly when you finish, it feels much more effortless versus typing it. And I've heard that from a lot of authors who have taken my trainings and are now dictating, and they're like, it's more effortless to get it on there on the page.
Yeah, absolutely. I started sort of doing dictation. I think I tried it years ago and just found it a little bit difficult, and so gave it up. But then I get so much shoulder pain, so many migraines. I was like,
Oh,
okay,
no, I'm
needs
sorry.
must. I need to try something new.
Mhm,
I don't want to have to give this up, and so I have started
mhm.
dictating. And there's
Yeah.
a freedom that comes with it, I think.
Mhm,
Your kind of imagination can take you away without having to be crossing things out or rethinking things or editing as you go along. You just go for it. Do you find that you
mhm,
edit as you go along, or actually you're quite good at just going with the flow?
mhm. Absolutely. And that's the other reason why dictation is faster for getting your first draft. It's not so much just that you can speak faster than you can type. It doesn't let you really go back and edit. You can if you have, say Scrivener up and you're dictating directly into there, and you can stop and, oh, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to fix that. What trained me not to do that is I wanted to dictate on my phone because I wanted to get away from my desk. It's like what you said, Emma, it's like your shoulders, your back, your body, and you're just sitting. So I wanted to have that flexibility. And so I wanted to dictate on my phone. And like you, I tried and failed. So brain doesn't work this way. I can't speak fictional worlds. So for authors out there and you yourself, if that feels like, oh, my brain just doesn't work that way, know that your brain can be trained. Just like you trained it to type on a keyboard, you can train it to do dictation. And so I spend a lot of time on, how do you train your brain to be comfortable with this? Because sometimes those ideas, like I said, are just coming out so fast. You can't capture them by typing. It's like if you could just say them, you could get this out. And what trained me to not edit as I go is I wanted to do it on my phone, but my old iPhone would cut off after 30 seconds of dictation or after the speech to text. And so I was like, well, this isn't going to work. So that was another thing that made me give up and put it to the side. And then I discovered this recording app and I was using it for recording other stuff. I was just recording story notes on it and then take it to my computer and type it up. They came out with a transcribe option and I was like, it will transcribe it in the app. And so this was some years ago. So there's even better tools available now. But I started recording it and then I would transcribe it. So when you're recording your words, you don't have the option of going and editing. Like you have to just keep going. I leave myself notes, verbal notes that will transcribe, but I have to just keep going with the story. So that makes my writing session. So if I'm sitting down for an hour writing, I am just writing for that hour. I can't go back and edit. And so that's where my word count doubled with dictation versus typing, speaking faster and not going back and editing, but really just in speaking faster. If I counted going back and editing, it's probably, like tripled my writing speed.
It's it does make it so much quicker. It is amazing. I had a question for you when you were talking there, and it's just slipped out my head, which is so frustrating when that happens.
Ah,
I'm sure it'll come back to me then
yeah.
if it's meant to be. So yeah, so the benefits then they are definitely physically, it's easier on the body. Speed wise, it can help you get that first draft. I think that's important to say, isn't it, about first drafting,
Yes.
that there's obviously going to be work to do in revision as there would be even if you're writing it. But for that drafting process, it's really beneficial. Oh, I remembered my question. So, when you first started, did you find, because you've mentioned there, okay, I'm going to sit down for an hour and I know I'm going to dictate for an hour. When you first started, could you just delve in and do an hour? Or did you find actually it was a slower start than that?
hmm It's the same with my writing. Typically, when I hit about the 500 word mark, I start feeling my creative flow. And I know some people, they may only write 500 words in an hour. Like that's perfectly fine. Dictation isn't all about going fast. That's what I like to tell people. As we've already said, health benefits, the ability to talk through your story, that messy middle that we sometimes get stuck with. And so I know a lot of authors, dictation is easier for them to break through some of the plot issues they have versus being frozen over the keyboard. So especially if you're out walking. Um, but the I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Did were you able to kind of sit down and dictate for an hour straight off the
Yes.
bat
So
or
I do want to say that I recommend when you're starting out, start out with just a little bit of dictation and then go back to typing. So that's a part of the training process. And no, I did not start out just sitting down for an hour and dictating. It was something that took a lot for my brain to get used to and to train it to be able to do that with writing. And I don't always get an hour writing session. It may only be 20 minutes, 15 or 20 minutes, but in that 15 or 20 minutes I can get in the same words that it would normally take me an hour of writing. And that's what I want to say. If you only write 500 words in an hour typing, you may be able to get that 500 words in 20 minutes or 30 minutes versus it taking you that hour, even though you're going slower, you're speaking slower, you're thinking through your thoughts, more before you put words on a page, and that's perfectly fine. But whatever your speed is, it will increase, and just do it with greater ease with dictating. But don't jump in and think, oh, I'm going to dictate for 4 hours and write 20,000 words starting out. So build up to that. And the fastest I've ever, or the most writing I've ever done, I had a deadline and I wrote 11,000 words in about 4 hours, and that was with interruptions and breaks and all. But I had it done by noon.
yeah, wow, with the brain power needed for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
I guess, I often, in terms of handwriting or typing, I talk about the muscle memory and how writing does get easier the more you do it because you create those neural pathways, you get that writing muscle going. And I'm guessing it's the same for dictation as well.
And that's something I cover in my Fictation course, is about creating neural pathways. I call them trenches, and you're digging a trench in your brain to let those fictional words flow through. So there's absolutely, just like you trained yourself to type, you can train yourself to dictate, even in using punctuation. So I use punctuation. I say period, question mark, new line, exclamation point, open quote, close quote, all of those things while I'm dictating. So once you've trained your muscles, your writing muscle, and you keep that in practice, then it just becomes as natural to you as typing.
Hmm. Now you mentioned there your Fictation course because I know you've not only do you do the dictation yourself, but you help other writers as well kind of adapt to this new technology and take advantage of it. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your course Fictation. Please do tell us.
Oh, I'm so excited for it to come out. So, first of all, fictation is a made up word. So, I did combine fiction and dictation, and I define it as the act of dictating your fiction. So, fictation, fictating, And authors were really loving using that versus just I'm a dictating author or I'm a dictator. It's I'm now a fictator. So Fictation Dictation 2.0 is a digital course. It's self-paced, so you can go through it as slow or as fast as you want to. Module one covers all the technical tools. So how do you actually fictate? How do you actually, do you need a microphone? Do you need software? I'll go ahead and let everyone in on this. You do not need expensive software to do dictation. Back in the day, Dragon Dictation was your only option. You had to spend hundreds of dollars on a software. I was always hesitant to do that because I was like, what if I can't actually train my brain to do this? Like, what if I can't actually, and here I've spent all this money on software. So I take you through whether you're on a MacBook, a Windows PC, if you're an Android phone user or an iPhone, I cover the different tools that you likely already have, whether it's a phone or a computer, that you can use the built-in transcription or speech to text dictation options on your device that you already have. So cover that, all the options and the ways of getting your dictation done. I talk about microphones and just tons of resources. And then I talk about how to fictate, like how do you actually do it? What is that process? How should you get yourself ready to dictate? What's kind of a startup routine and ending routine? And so I cover all of that in the first module. The second module is your fictation in action. So here are the exercises to begin training your brain to do dictation. Because dictation, I think we're used to dictating text messages and emails. A lot of people use that already in their author business. But when they go to dictate fiction, our brains tend to freeze up. It's a different neural pathway. It's not the same neural pathway as dictating an email or a text message. When you're moving it into fiction, that's when you experience the freeze. And that's what held me up for the longest time. So in module two, I tell people even after you finish the course, come back to module two because that's your training ground. Module three is my fictation in action. I wrote an entire novella using, well, it was my 12th book to write via dictation, but I wrote this one live on camera, recording my phone, recording audio, and teaching through that process of here's what it actually looks like to dictate an entire book. And so I edited that down and took the best parts, and that's module three with the course. Module four, I do talk about fictating with nonfiction. So how you can use it in your author business to get your emails done faster and to get your, text and stay on top of your author business using dictation. And then module five is your bonus module, bonus tips and tricks, bonus exercises, and ways that you can use fictation in your author business. So I just wanted to pack it with everything that authors need to finally master dictation with their fiction. So try and fail or use it sporadically and, oh, this just doesn't work. I can't get past this mental block of speaking my fictional words out loud. That's what Fictation is helping authors overcome.
Oh, that is amazing. Yeah, that sounds so comprehensive. I love that you're starting with the technical side of it, just easing people in with what equipment they need and reassuring people as well that that actually we probably have what we need somewhere on our desk or on our phone or our device. Because certainly I started with Dragon many moons ago. That was the one that I bought, and
Yep.
trying to train my dragon was yeah, it was quite tricky,
Yeah.
but now we don't need to do that. So it's lovely that you start with that because there might be a number of people who have been thinking about it for a long time, but they're reticent and just kind of unclear about how it actually works. So the very fact that you take us through that whole process, and I have to say, very brave of you as well, I think, to show us you in drafting mode, doing it, kind of sharing that with us, because as writers, that first draft is pretty vulnerable. It's where our work is not what we want to generally share with people. That's where we tell ourselves the story as much as anything. So it's really brave of you to do that. How did you find that experience?
I felt so vulnerable. It freaked me out the first time I did it because I did do it live in front of my boot camp folks, authors who were in there. But the response that I got, Emma, everyone was like, thank you. That was so helpful. That's what I needed. And I was like, okay, just suck it up, Sarah, and get it, get it done. And I will say what you get to see in the course, I show my first drafts to no one. No one sees my first drafts. No first readers, no beta readers, not even my mother. No one sees my first drafts. I, go through about four drafts before I send it to get that first feedback. So the fact that yes, I'm opening the doors, opening my heart and my little brain to let authors see that creative process, because I truly believe that's an instrumental part in them overcoming the resistance that they may have to dictating their fiction. So I was like, I needed to do that. Let me just add a quick note on Dragon Dictation for anyone who does have it, like you. That is still absolutely a viable way of doing your dictation. The accuracy is still way up there. It's probably going to be among the highest accuracy you're going to have in the transcription process. So Dragon is still a great tool. They did discontinue it for MacBook though, so they're not getting that support. So it's really left Mac users out. But if people don't have Dragon, they just know they don't need it. But I do cover Dragon in the course as well. So if anyone out there has bought Dragon even years ago and just tried to train it, they were more focused on trying to train the software rather than training themselves of how do I speak my fictional words. So that's what Fictation is. So even if you have Dragon and it's gathering dust on your computer because you weren't able to begin using it to dictate your fiction, this is the course that will help you train yourself to use your Dragon.
Oh, maybe I do need to get it back out of its lair. I don't even know where it is anymore. I'll have to go in and have a look for it. Yeah.
Go wake the dragon.
Yeah. So that sounds amazing. And I hope that maybe for some of our listeners who feel less tech savvy, that it will give
Mhm.
them the courage to kind of, do you know what? This is something I can tackle and it seems
Yeah.
doable. So I hope that
Mhm.
will encourage people to go. So
Yeah.
where can people find out about it?
Yeah, fictioncourses.com/dictation. I also have a free mini course on there, Scrivener plus Dictation Power Combo, that authors can enroll in. So yeah, that's the best place to do it, is at fictioncourses.com/dictation.
Well, I'll definitely be linking to both of those, and I've taken the mini course that you offer, and it was so comprehensive, so great. So I absolutely recommend it for anybody. I mean, as I say, I have dictated in the past, so and even I found it so helpful and learned some things too.
Oh,
So please
good.
do go and check that out.
Good.
Thank you for sharing about that with us. I think this is a whole new way of I think this is just the start. I think we're going to see more and more people doing this, particularly, we are all very busy, and if we can find easier ways of fitting our writing into our day-to-day
Mhm.
lives, I think this is going to grow and grow and grow. So I think you're doing people a
Yeah.
real service by sharing
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
Um, I just kind of going back a little bit to, you sharing your first draft. I was just curious, you've been writing, publishing for 15 years now, and I wondered if your willingness to share that first draft as a sort of reflection of the growth that you've
Mhm.
gone through as a writer and the sort of confidence that comes with doing the practice of writing, of publishing regularly, writing
Yeah.
regularly, that with that comes kind of a innate confidence that you wouldn't have had 15 years ago. And so you're kind of feeling more able to be at peace with
Mhm.
sharing.
You're right on with that, Emma. I was just thinking of that as I was sharing that. I would not have been able to do that in the early days of writing. No way. And nor should I have because of the feedback, and it probably would have crushed my spirit and all of that. So I encourage authors, do your editing and do your education first, and then, begin sharing it and getting feedback, because you do need to do that.
Mhm.
And we do there's a great saying about practice in public, and that's something that when we are putting our work out there, we're doing. But I would have been way too vulnerable, even just a few years ago. Now, when I look at it and I see the mess that my novella is, as I was dictating and going back and even doing the outlining process. So at the beginning, I take you through my outlining process, and it took me about 2 hours. I trimmed it down, but authors get to see here's how I'm thinking through this and using dictation to make my outline process go faster. But very very much something I wouldn't have been able to do, because I know now, though, looking at that mess, I know what I can do in the revision process. I know that that's when the story actually is created versus this is just and I forget the author's name, but I love her quote where she said that the first draft is just shoveling sand into the box so we can build castles. And that's all this first draft is. It's just a pile of sand. But I know because I've been through the process so many times that I will be able to build sandcastles out of it in the revision process.
So I want our newer writers listening to kind of really hear that the more you practice and the more you keep going, your confidence does build.
Mhm.
It does grow over time. So keep going, even when it
Yes.
feels really, really tough.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so on that, so what are you writing at the moment? What are you working on right now?
I am outlining, actually, I just started outlining book 11 in my Doc Beck Western series. I'm going to have a total of 12 books, so I'm almost at the end of that. And that's my novella series. And then I'm going to tackle my next novel, which will be book 6 in the Choctaw Tribune series. And that'll be the last book in that series. So I'll have those two series completed. I may have those drafted by the end of this year. We'll see. I mean, dictation does make it go faster, but there is a lot of research involved a lot of high level things that I want to do before I begin that drafting. And there'll be research afterwards as well as I fine tune it. But that'll be a process. But hopefully I'll get those drafted. And I'm going to Washington, D.C. in August as well. Excited for that. My first nonfiction book, which was actually my first traditionally published book. So I'm technically a hybrid author now. Went through Chickasaw Press for that. And it was selected for the National Book Festival put on by the Library of Congress, but it was chosen to represent the state of Oklahoma. So we're really excited and proud for that to do that. And so the press is sending me to DC. So really excited for that.
That is a wonderful experience. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Oh, you're
Thank
going to have a
you.
blast. I'm absolutely sure
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
It'll be my third trip to DC, so we'll catch some other research for sure while we're there because we like digging in the National Archives and all of that. So, and this is the National Book Festival. I mean, I feel like, oh, I'm going to be tied to my table. I'm going to be wanting to go around to all of the other book tables.
Well, it sounds like research really, it's not just that you like writing historical books, but actually the research, it sounds like, is a fun part for you as well. So is there an historical period that you particularly like? Because I know
Mhm.
you've written in different time periods. Is there one that you love more?
Yeah. I'm primarily in the 1800s, so the 19th century. That's where most of my books are set, except for the Choctaw Code Talkers of World War One. So that was 1918, primarily set there. But I really enjoy the 1800s. That's what I grew up reading a lot of. So a lot of prairie fiction, and there weren't as many Native American books and natives in those stories, and there were some. There were some good ones that I read, but then just a lot of stereotypes and all of that. So I wanted to kind of park myself in that time period with my fiction and do the research and eliminate the stereotypes and just produce some really authentic Native American fiction for that time period. And I do have, though, bringing it forward into the 20th century. So I have an action adventure series that features a Choctaw artist in the 1970s. I'm really excited to explore that time period because it was a really revolutionary time for my tribe. So looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, or quite a departure. Wow. Lovely. I have so enjoyed talking with you today, Sarah. It's been a joy. So just before we go, though, do just remind our listeners where is the best place to find out about you and what you do.
Fictioncourses.com. That's my site where I teach authors how to become confident in their writing. You can join my author newsletter list, which is the Confident Author, and get to know me a little bit more. If you're interested in any of my books, ChoctawSpirit.com is where I direct sell my books, and of course they're on Amazon and all the usual suspects as well.
Lovely. Thanks so much. It's been lovely.
Oh, thank you, Emma. I appreciate it. And we don't have a word for goodbye in the Choctaw language. We say Chipisalachiki. I will see you again soon. Thank you.